Long ago, in an ancient era known as 1994, Wizards of the Coast gave away a unique card at an event called Dragon Con. That card, Nalathni Dragon, was a 1/1 dragon for 2 red and 2 mana of any color. It had flying, it had fire breathing, and there was one more odd feature. Nalathni Dragon was the first and to this date still the only red creature to have banding. What does banding do? The issue was not that Nalathni Dragon was a great card. It wasn't. The alarm and frustration that arose in the Magic community of 1994 was that in order to get this unique card, one would have to have traveled to Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia. It was available through no other means. If you had not been in attendance, then you could not get this magic card. What would happen, people wondered in frustration, had Nalathni Dragon, or a future exclusive promo card, been a powerful competitive card instead? I honestly remember one day on the playground way back in high school during the mid-1990s when several of my friends and fellow Magic players were talking about Nalathni Dragon, and they were complaining about the fact that it was impossible to get, that it was only offered at one event. Even then, they were aware of the problem this precedent could set. Those bad feels were felt and responded to by Wizards of the Coast, and they seemed to take this message to heart as they never again repeated this type of exclusive card promotion. That is, until the start of this year with the release of Dominaria, when the Nalathni Dragon disaster became the buy-a-box blunder. Blah, 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 blah. So, flash forward 22 years to the release of Dominaria. Over those 22 years, cards have indeed been offered at conventions such as Comic-Con with special, alternate artwork available nowhere else, or as booster box promos, again, with special or alternate artwork available nowhere else. But the cards themselves, the mechanics of the cards themselves, have been available always within the standard set, available within booster packs. It's the special artwork that was the Comic-Con exclusive, not the Planeswalker card that artwork was attached to. While there was never an official policy or explicit promise, all of the reserve list, that blunders like the Nalathni Dragon would never be repeated, there was a lot of implicit evidence that this was something that was off the table. In his somewhat sarcastic article, 20 Things That Were Going to Kill Magic, Mark Rosewater listed the Nalathni Dragon debacle at number 4. Wow, that's pretty high up there. In which Rosewater described the player base reaction as quote-unquote livid, and directly in that article stating that due to the quote-unquote stink that players made, Wizards decided to stop producing mechanically unique cards outside of booster packs. This, of course, ended with Commander precons, but with rare exception, these Commander precons were widely printed and widely available. You could buy them off the shelf at all of your local game stores, at big box retailers, and thus the true livid stink of the Nalathni Dragon disaster was avoided, because the cards that you needed or wanted to play with could still be obtained through a reasonable means. And also, those Commander exclusives were not standard legal. But all of this changed with the change to buy-a-box promos starting with Dominaria. While some sets would have cards such as Celestial Colonnade, Surgical Extraction, Supreme Verdict, Goblin Rabblemaster, or cards like a Therese Nielsen alternate art Birds of Paradise, whoa. Other sets would include such stinkers as Memoricide, Skyship Stalker, Archfiend of Ifnir, Devil's Play, and Captain's Hook. Really? Captain's Hook?
Oh, yes, you'll see. He'll crow, he'll fight, he'll fly, and then he'll die.
And die they did indeed, with lackluster offerings such as these, until Wizards of the Coast decided to revisit that Nalathni Dragon idea and offer an exclusive card as the buy-a-box promo, a card that was not available anywhere else. Firesong and Sunseeker were a legendary pair of minotaurs with interesting abilities. Commander potential, and most shocking of all, standard legality. And they were not available through any means other than pre-ordering a booster box from your local game store. The results were somewhat explosive. Local game stores overwhelmingly stated that they saw noticeable increases in both sales, pre-orders, and attendance, which they attributed to that exclusive promo, while simultaneously, players voiced concerns about just what might happen if the card became a standard must-have. After all, aside from that one weekend, that one opportunity, the card was no longer available to be obtained by any other means. Either you pre-ordered a booster box from your local game store during this specific time, or else you're just going to have to buy one on the secondary market. Even with those Commander precons, with those made-for-Commander exclusives available nowhere else, these are available on the shelves all the time, or at least for an extended period of time after that product's release. And there's a lot more to it than just pre-ordering a box, as pre-ordering a box only gets you one, and a deck needing a playset would require you to pre-order 4 boxes, and most stores were not even sent an ample supply of the promos, so much so that they ran out of promos and were unable to offer them to every single person who pre-ordered. While the boon to business was a plus for LGSs, this was fraught with the potential for a perfect storm. Firesong and Sunseeker didn't break through to the standard playable level, but how long until a Buy a Box promo exclusive did? The answer? Not very long at all. In the very next set, Core 2019, Nexus of Fate was the exclusive, available only through pre-order promo, and right away, people could see that this card had potential to go big. For 2 blue and 5 of any color, take an extra turn after this one. If Nexus of Fate would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Nexus of Fate and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. By the end of our most recent Pro Tour, Nexus of Fate had established itself as a strong competitive deck, and the price of this card immediately shot up nearly 20%. Want to play with this card? Well, it's not available in booster packs. It's not available in sealed product on the shelves. It's not available anywhere, anyway, but via that secondary market. You know, the thing Wizards of the Coast is legally forbidden from acknowledging exists, but seems to have given a golden nugget to anyway. So right after that Pro Tour, if you wanted a playset of Nexus of Fate, well, it's going to cost you $160, $150 for 4 cards. This is taking what has constantly been Standard's problem, a high card cost in a format with a quick rotation, and amplifying it. Sure, you don't have to play with the Nexus of Fate deck. Sure, maybe in a few months Nexus of Fate deck won't even be that powerful anymore. Maybe cost will go down. It's gone down a little bit since the Pro Tour. But the issue here isn't really Nexus of Fate. I'll repeat, the issue here isn't Nexus of Fate. It is the potential for even worse outcomes than Nexus of Fate. Nexus is just a portent, a warning of things to come. Imagine the Buy a Box promo that ends up being a 4 of in not just one specific deck, but several. What if they do a Buy a Box promo that has the same problems a card like Smuggler's Copter had, in that it went in every deck? Every deck needed to run a playset of it, no matter the color, no matter the strategy. While $40 per card or whatever may not seem like a lot to some people, I would argue that is too high for the masses, too high for a children's card game, especially for Standard. Here, by the way, is a quick clip of Richard Garfield, creator of Magic the Gathering, speaking on the issue of individual card price.
My intuition is that having a $20 card is about right, $20 cards. These $50 cards, if those $50 cards are being driven by non-play elements, like they're foils or they've got some imprint, that's one thing. That I don't have really an opinion about that. But for players, I don't see that as a good thing. I think there has to be a limit.
Now, I have a link to the full interview in this video's description. It's really worth a watch. Go check that channel that nabbed that interview out. But notice the distinction Garfield drew there. If a card is needed to play the game, going above a reasonable price is not what he'd want. However, cards that are simply for collecting, alternate arts, foils, premium versions of cards that are still otherwise accessible, well, this is fine. This is something we can see in relation to one particular Buy a Box promo, in fact. Remember I mentioned that Birds of Paradise had been a Buy a Box promo back in M11? This is a card that has been reprinted like crazy, from core sets to special sets and back again, and it has been present throughout Magic's history. Yet, it's always retained a modest value, but never too high because of all these printings. Not too expensive, but not pennies either, and played just about everywhere. Yet, that Buy a Box promo of Birds of Paradise is valued at about, whoa, $50 each right now, when all other copies are so much significantly cheaper. Why? Easy, because it offers special, one-of-a-kind artwork available nowhere else by celebrated artist Therese Nielsen, and it is a card that is actually played in multiple formats, not just the standard of the time, which that alone does help. Magic, we must remember, is a collectible card game, and cards can have value if they are collectible. It costs Wizards of the Coast the exact same amount of cash, the exact same cost, to offer as their Buy a Box promo a foil, full art, Karn, Scion of Urza, or Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. There you go. There's your Buy a Box promo. A foil, full art planeswalker that you promise, you pinky swear, will never have its art reprinted or available anywhere else. Want that foil, full art planeswalker or chase rare mythic? Go down to your local game store and pre-order a booster box. Maybe play in a pre-release. Can't make it? Can't afford it? Don't worry. The card is still in the set, still available in booster packs. You just don't get the special full artwork. God forbid you offer modern staples like Wormcoil Engine or Mox Opal or Liliana of the Veil or Noble Hierarch as the foil full art. I'm always hearing that it's impossible to monetize Modern, impossible to get Modern to sell standard packs. Well, you know what? Offer a foil full art Snapcaster as the Buy a Box promo and poof! Modern is now selling standard booster boxes. And you know what? Maybe my suggestion just now is not the solution. It's one idea. I like Buy a Box promos, and I want them to be good. I want them to have value. But this new method of card exclusivity is wrought with potential disaster, the likes of which we have only just started to see. Things are not black and white. They do not always simply work perfectly or fail. Sometimes we need to refine, reevaluate, re-examine, and in so doing, perfect. And I think that is one of these cases. But you can't just say, oh, this is great for local game stores, therefore any problems from the player base is just mindless whining. That is an unfair dismissal of legitimate concerns and frustrations with this issue. I think it's one of the worst qualities of Wizards of the Coast to always fall back on, haters gonna hate, and Magic players complain about everything, as a way to dismiss criticism. But likewise, we in the player base cannot say, oh, well, there's inherent problems here, demonstrated with Nexus of Fate and the potential that promos better than Nexus of Fate could bring, therefore we need to scrap this idea entirely, get rid of Buy a Box promos, go back to the old 10-cent rares. No. Just because something isn't working, you don't abolish it entirely. I feel there's a lot of great qualities to having a Buy a Box system where cards that have a high value are offered. This is something that can reward players, that can benefit card stores, and yeah, even make that precious money for the corporation. Everyone can win if we do this right, but we gotta do it right. At the end of the day, while I often will acknowledge and advocate for cards to have value, Magic the Gathering is a game. It's something the makers of this game need to remember. Wizards of the Coast must say to itself, Players need to be able to play it. And if cards that are needed for standard play, the premier format of the game itself, can only be reasonably obtained through pre-registering for a booster box at your local game store and then hoping to receive a promo from a limited supply that you sent to that local game store, well then I would argue that is not at all reasonable. Maybe the company that makes this game, that prints these cards, is going to have to do what it doesn't seem to want to do, and that is reprint the in-demand cards and offer those as the buy a box promos. But I don't know. That's just my idea, and now I want to hear from you. Do you like the exclusive cards as buy a box promos, such as Nexus of Fate? Are people making too big a deal out of this, or is this a serious issue? Is there a way to fix that issue? A better solution than card exclusivity? Let me know in the comments below. And this video is brought to you by my and many other people's local game store, Card Kingdom, a brick-and-mortar pillar of this community, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. These are the people that keep Tolarian Community College going and growing strong. So thank you.